Shalom, shalom. First, I'm going to start off by giving all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Akakwadash. Double honors into the elders, apostles, and bishops of GMS Great Millstone who rule well, teach, and edify. And peace and blessings to sincere Akim Mo'akwat in his household of faith. My name is Ishaya from the GMS Arizona Church in Ottawa. We're going to make an edifying video. Going into that, the spirit that's going out right now, man. Neuro, Trump, being that cruel Lord. And a couple things is happening in the spirit of prophecy. This is Tucker Carlson saying, basically turning back on Trump, and MAGA. It says,
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all.
Here we go. This devil, man, Neuro 47 has gone nuts. He's lost it, okay? He's always been crazy. But, Esau, Edom, it's going to come crashing down soon, man. Elder Apostle Tahar made a video earlier going into how, Neuro already tried to set off the nuclear codes on Iran. He already tried to blow them, off the face of this planet. And there was reports, Neuro, he was reading the first book of Chronicles, the 7th chapter. Talking about cutting people off from a land. This devil, man, Neuro, he's bloodthirsty. And ultimately, the Edomites that are the ruling class Edomites that are controlling this devil are bloodthirsty, man. It's getting to the time where these devils are backs are against the wall, right? And it's only a matter of time for that RFID micro chip is going to be mandated all throughout the world. They were going into the fact that he wanted to set off those nuclear codes, which blow Iran off the face of the world, man. And ultimately, the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua didn't have that to be at this time. In Neuro, this is why you can't believe the mainstream media. Neuro's saying that they've come to agreements, saying that the Strait of Hormuz is opened up. They're saying that, they're making peace agreements. They're saying that the United States is winning the war and has been winning the war. They're saying that, American soil is protected. And this all goes through the spirit, man. This is 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter. Salakia, bear with me for 1 second. 1 Thessalonians, the 5th chapter, in the 3rd verse, it says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." And this is the type of society that Babylon the Great is posing to people. A place of peace and safety. A place that if you listen to the things that they're rolling out, you're going to be secure. And as we know in Lamentations, the 4th chapter, in the 17th verse, it says, "As for us, our eyes have yet failed for our vain help." You 2/3 out there that are depending on them, depending on these devils to keep you secure. You 2/3 out here depending on, JC and the Roman, the wacky-tacky Roman Catholic Church. You wacky-tacky Christians, you Muslims. All you idiots, man. Those who aren't following Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, ultimately, you're going to be looking upon a vain help. And in a time when you want to call upon whatever power it is that you put your eggs into, whatever basket you put your eggs into, the Lord's going to mock. Because the scriptures talk about in Judges, go and cry unto the gods which you have chosen, okay? We see what's going on, man, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, which is revealed unto the prophets, which is revealed unto our elders, man, from their elders, man. The Lord has really, brought this truth to light, giving us a more sure word of prophecy for we can confidently say, man, what's going on. But going back to Neuro, this is Isaiah the 19th chapter, and it says in verse 1, it says, "The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. And the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set Egyptian against Egyptian, and they shall fight every one against his brother. Tucker Carlson, not even, supporting this movement, because Neuro Trump, man, he's making moves that even these Edomites are questioning, man. Like, is this guy gone nuts? And ultimately, Edomites are a lot like sharks, the thing about sharks is that, they have no moral compass when it comes to cannibalism. The biggest shark eats whatever the hell it can fit in its mouth, and the only things that it allows into its mouth are things that benefit them. So at their mercy, they don't kill them. That's why you have small fish that can swim into a shark's mouth to clean off, certain bacterias and remains. But, let a smaller shark come around them and they go bite a hole in their ass. These Edomites, man, they're bloodthirsty, and that's why we can never trust them. And it reads, and it says, and they shall fight everyone against his brother and every one against his neighbor, city against city and kingdom against kingdom, man. And that's going to cause a divide here in this nation as well, too. You will see even Edomites looking at each other crazy, man. And ultimately, this devil's going to usher in that RFID microchip, man, and that beast system as a means to fix everything that he's destroyed. And the people aren't going to be able to see it that way. They're going to see it as a resolve to the problems that have been faced. I was talking to a coworker earlier, and he was going to, it was a patient. I was talking to a patient. He was saying, once they get Trump out of here and they get a new president, everything will be better. A lot of people have confidence in Babylon. They think that this place can be saved. And the scriptures do say, we would have saved Babylon, but she cannot be saved. Babylon is through, okay? There's no saving Babylon. You shouldn't even want to save Babylon, man. This place is hell. This place is wicked. It's disgusting. And all those spirits that wish to save Babylon are part of that Revelation chapter 11 and verse 8 spirits, man. And it says, and their body shall lie in the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where our Lord was crucified. Those are the only idiots that are going to sit here and believe upon Babylon, man, so blindly. Whatever America says, it goes. Whatever Esau says goes. Esau got you thinking that Tylenol will do better than you than the herbs. Esau Edom will have you take an Advil, for pain relief, but then be the same devil causing you pain. And then that Advil is just a beta blocker. So most of the time, you're not even helping your pain. You're just disguising it. You're numbing yourself at the risk of your liver. That does significant damage to your liver. You're better off drinking to ease your pain at that stage. Anyways, man. That's why we got to be knowledgeable in the herbs, man. We stand against everything this devil stands for, man. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, of course, man. We're glorifying Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Esau, Edom, in him dwells no good thing, man. He's an absolute devil through and through. And it says, the spirit of Egypt shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsels thereof. And they shall seek to the idols and to their charmers. And that goes into Isaiah 47 spirit, man. How they're stargazers, prognosticators, how ultimately, they can't deliver them. This devil has a lot of left-hand spirits going all throughout, man. He's calling on all of his left-hand high priests. What can we do? What's next? The true power is coming back soon, man. The Lord's children being woken up, and these devils are in a haste, man. Literally just fumbling. And it says, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord. And we're in Egypt right now, man. Egypt representative of bondage. We're here in Egypt right now. This is modern day Egypt. And it says, in Egypt I will give over to the hand of a cruel Lord. Look at the way people are living nowadays, man. This is a highly oppressive society. This is a highly proud, possessive, over-consuming, but yet underperforming society. Here lies the most sick people. It lies the most dumbasses. It lies the most proud people. And people all here are just cut off, man. That's why we can't be friends with the world. That's why we can't have, all these worldly relationships, because these people are just truly just missile food, man. This is the time, man, to really, really awake out of sleep. Get away from all those sleep-inducing things, those sleep-inducing spirits. Get away from all that shit. Stuff's about to be popping off soon, man. And it says, a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord, Yahweh of hosts. So just expect things to get worse, and fear Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, and hope in the Lord, man. Keep his commandments to the best of your ability and hold strong to thy faith. And Lord willing, man, we be delivered from this thing. We are the hopeful elect. We are hopeful that we get out of this. We are hopeful that we have the strength, to, carry on through this time, man. This time that we're going to enter into is going to be highly wicked. And with that, I leave off a quick Hebrew prayer that elder apostle will call, all the apostles, all the elders, say this one is, Rapah Kazak Lab, heal, strengthen, mind. Just a simple one that you could say throughout your day, You could say, Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, the Heavenly Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of Yahweh Shai, Babu Kushai, please, nothing like Yah, and then, Rapah Chazak Lab, heal, strengthen my mind, Another one I like to say is Babu Kushai, nothing like Yah, Harachak Badash. So please give me the spirit, Layakal, so to endure, Halakatazah, to the end. So Babu Kushai, nothing like Yah, Harachak Badash, Layakal, Halakatazah. Babu Kushai, give me the spirit to, Lord, to endure to the end, man. Because we definitely in those days, things are popping off. And we got to stay spiritual. But I pray this lesson was edifying. I want to last and give all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, B'Shem Yahweh Shai, B'Shem Rachak Wadash, Shalom.